Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Maze NTG here, back with another daily deck video for you. This time for Best of 3 Standard, we've got Grixis Midrange featuring Dreadhorde Butcher. So as a midrange deck, this deck's looking to go over the top of aggressive strategies with removal, outsized creatures, but also be low enough to the ground and playing powerful proactive threats that it can get in under control as well. So what are our suite of powerful midrange threats? But it starts with 4 Dreadhorde Butcher, 1/1 for 2 with haste. Whenever it hits a creature or planeswalker in combat, you put a +1/+1 counter on it so it can rapidly snowball into a large threat all on its own, and when it dies, it has the kicker of dealing damage equal to its power to any target as well. So a very potent threat, especially if you stick it on turn 2 on the play, or even on the draw if your opponent doesn't have any interaction, and it really does go from there. If you need to clear the way for your Dreadhorde Butcher, the deck does play a suite of removal as well, which we'll come to shortly. The 3 mana slot, we've got 4 Legion Warboss, again a powerful proactive threat in its own right. It comes down, immediately starts making goblin tokens, pressuring your opponent, threatening planeswalkers. In addition, 4 Thief of Sanity, again a 1-card army. Connect a few times against an opposing midrange deck, an aggro deck, or a control deck, you're going to have a card advantage over your opponent by being able to cast spells off the top of their own library as well. More must-answer creatures occupy the 4 mana slot in the deck. 4 Nicol Bolas, the Ravager, the reason, really, to be Grixis midrange, aside from a planeswalker we'll be looking at shortly, that happens to share a name with this one. 4 mana, 4/4 flyer, enters the battlefield, opponent discards a card, so immediately you get your 1/1 value. Very aggressive body, goes over the top of other creatures, and if you do end up with 7 mana, it turns into a curve topper, flipping into the undeniably powerful Nicol Bolas the Arisen. 1 God-Eternal Kefnet rounds out the creature suite at the 4 converted mana cost slot. While we're not going to be getting many discounts on our instants and sorceries, thanks to their coloured mana symbol heavy requirements, just getting another copy of an instant or sorcery revealed off Kefnet is additional value, and we certainly won't be sad to be playing a 4/5 flyer for 4 with the ability to come back from death or exile. So those are the creatures in the deck. We've got 4 Nicol Bolas Dragon God as our curve topper, kind of the ultimate epitome of the mid-range planeswalker, where your +1 is draw a card, and in this case it also puts your opponent down a card. The -3 is destroy a creature or planeswalker, and you have a game-winning ultimate ability. Nicol Bolas does also gain flexibility from stealing the abilities of your opponent's planeswalkers, but this is the only planeswalker in the deck, so a lot of the time he is going to have to stick to his own set of abilities. What a greedy dragon god. So coming back to the removal and interaction we mentioned, we've got 2 copies of Lightning Strike, 3 copies of Tyrant Scorn as our 2 mana removal suite, and 3 copies of the more flexible, but also more expensive Bedevil to give us an out to deal with opposing planeswalkers as well. Again, we're looking for lower cost spells in this deck because we want to have turns where we play a threat and remove an opposing creature, rather than just reacting to what our opponent's doing. To that end, what's a better solution to our opponent's threats than being able to answer them once they're cast? Being able to get rid of them before your opponent ever gets a chance to play them. So we have 2 main deck Duress and 4 Thought Erasure, again to give us proactive plays early in the game, and also to have the option of sliding a Duress down alongside one of our other threats in the late game if we want to clear the way for something like a Legion Warboss or a Thief of Sanity. Aside from the creature base, the deck has a number of lands in it, that number is 25. So 1 island, 3 swamp, the skew for swamps, being able to cast Nicol Bolas Dragon God is quite important, and it is a triple black spell. 4 Catacomb, 4 Watery Grave, 4 Blood Crypt, 4 Dragonskull Summit, so we're maxing out on checks and shocks that make black mana, and the remaining lands in the deck are 3 Steam Vents, 2 Sulfur Falls, to give us our blue and red. As it is a best of 3 deck, we have a sideboard. The sideboard's nice and straightforward. You're playing 1 copy of Duress, so we can go up to 3. 3 copies of Negate if we do want to be able to trade our mana efficiently for opposing planeswalkers and larger non-creature spells. 2 copies of the Elderspell, again, let us have a powerful hate tool against Esper or Jeskai planeswalkers decks. 4 Lava Coil allows us to tailor our removal suite to the opposing deck that we're facing, especially in the case of something like Gruul midrange, where Lightning Strikes can't deal with Gruul Spellbreakers with a +1/+1 counter, or we need a cleaner answer to a Rekindling Phoenix. 3 Cry of the Carnarium gives us game against mono red, mono white, just having access to that sweeper, in which case we'd either look to minimize the creatures that we are playing to kind of go over the top of those decks, or perhaps play around our own cry, depending on the creature. And finally, rounding out the sideboard, you have 2 copies of Enter the God-Eternals. Again, a powerful tool against both aggressive and mid-range decks. You get to likely kill a creature, gain 4 life to stabilize, and put a 4/4 of your own into play as well. The milling is incidental, so just remember to think about who you are milling with this card. Against something like Blue-Red Phoenix, you probably just want to be milling yourself, but it does depend. So this is the deck, all 75 cards of it. It's a list that was posted to Arena Decklist, retweeted from Real Goblin King, and I believe the deck is based itself on a list originally brewed up by F2K Ash Lizzle. So we're going to take this deck into a couple of games, see how it goes, perhaps play a match, have a look at some sideboarding, but either way, I'll see you shortly for some games with this deck. Okay, so here on the play with Grixis Midrange in our first match. This hand looks pretty fantastic. We've got the Duress, Tyrant, Scorn for interaction, Nicol Bolas as our play, and the 4 lands that will allow us to cast him. So we'll see what our opponent can do against this hand. So thinking about whether we want to lead on Duress, I would like to see what our opponent's up to. I don't think we get much value out of holding it for now. We might draw a 3, we have 4 Thief of Sanity, 4 Legion Warboss. So our opponent has a pair of Thought Erasures, a Cry of the Carnarium, and a Cast Down. So we're going to take one of the Thought Erasures. The opponent's lands are all coming into play tapped. Opponent is playing Grixis, whether they're playing Grixis Control. This should be interesting. So we'll definitely take the Thought Erasure though. Hopefully opponent doesn't draw a shock anytime soon, and we draw a Thought Erasure of our very own. Thief of Sanity is a pretty good one, because we'll get to cast it the turn opponent would be Thought Erasuring us currently. Is it worth shocking in to have Tyrant Scorn up? I think so, given that our opponent is a control deck. I don't know what they could do that rewards us for doing this. Watery Grave, Thought Erasure. I suppose be interesting to see if opponent takes Nicol Bolas or Thief of Sanity. Because they do have Cry of the Carnarium to answer the Thief, but Cast Down doesn't interact with Nicol Bolas. Yeah, opponent takes Nicol Bolas. So we draw Dreadhorde Butcher. So what are we going to do then? So opponent has Cast Down and Cry of the Carnarium. Tyrant Scorn can bounce our Butcher. So it's possible we just feed Thief into this Cry, and then play Butcher with Tyrant Scorn up. Kind of unfortunate our opponent found the shock, but what can you do? I should probably play my spells in the order I mentioned. But again, we're forcing the opponent to react to the plays that we're making. Cast Down on the Thief, sure. Interesting that it didn't get Cry of the Carnariumed. So again, I think we do just shock in the Steam Vents, make a Dreadhorde Butcher, and then attack with it. Because if opponent does go for the Cry, we can just Tyrant Scorn it back. If they don't, it's going to outsize their Cry of the Carnarium next turn. Opponent might be looking to play Nicol Bolas. Yeah, Cry of the Carnarium. We'll bounce our Dreadhorde Butcher, because we don't have a play for next turn currently, and if we get to stick Nicol Bolas or Nicol Bolas Dragon God onto this board, it would be pretty fantastic for us. We just draw land instead. So we'll replay Butcher. We don't know anything about opponent's hand. We'll put this Vents in tapped, and then we'll pass. So opponent's got land. They have Disinformation Campaign, so we'll be discarding our land. Then opponent passes. Well, that's would be a good draw if we had another black mana. So we should have played Watery Grave last turn, and we are getting suitably punished. So Butcher gets bedeviled. We'll go face with the damage. Let's see what opponent's follow-up is. So we draw a Thief of Sanity. We'll play that out. And we'll see if opponent has removal for it. If they do, I imagine they'll be casting it. Thief is dead. Sure. So if we'd had the black mana, this game would be very much over. Hopefully opponent can't interact with this Nicol Bolas. So we took opponent's Negate. So they may have had Negate anyway. There's the black mana. We'll send Nicol Bolas in. We'll just jam Nicol Bolas. Sinister Sabotage would be a good top deck. Opponent doesn't have it. We'll plus. Opponent exiles their swamp. If opponent has a Nicol Bolas, it'd be kind of awkward. Opponent doesn't have a Nicol Bolas and explodes. So, game 1 to Grixis Midrange. So we're playing against an opponent on presumably a control deck, given what they had going on. So I don't think we want to... I don't think we want to try and out-control the control deck. So what we're going to do, we're going to cut our Lightning Strikes, we're going to cut our Tyrant Scorns, we'll bring in Negates and Duress. I imagine we want Elderspells. We could probably get away with shaving a Bedevil. I don't think we want to enter the God-Eternals or Lava Coil. I think this is our 60. Let's see what happens in game number 2. And let's think about triple black this time, eh? So 1 land in this hand, even though we do have a Duress and opponents on a mull to 6. Definitely mulliganing. This hand's interesting. We have a turn 2 Butcher. I imagine opponent will have a way to interact with it. I would not like to draw another land just yet. Let's see what happens. So Nicol Bolas Dragon God, we're a ways off, but we do have the triple black in hand if we play right this time. So we'll put Blood Crypt in tapped, probably going to play Drowned Catacomb. Opponent probably has Thought Erasure here. Interesting to see what they take, probably just... Oh, I don't really know, depends what their last 4 cards are. I wouldn't like to make the decision. They just take the more powerful threat. They probably have removal for the Butcher. But that means we still play it out. Because why wouldn't we? So Cry of the Carnarium or something would be awkward here. So, what are we doing? I think we're still playing Legion Warboss, honestly. Because if opponent untaps and cries, Dreadhorde Butcher will have got to connect and will be a 3/3 so it won't die. If opponent removes Dreadhorde Butcher, Cry will just trade 1-for-1 with Legion Warboss anyway. And I do want the Goblin to get in. Warboss might just get countered. Or opponent might just remove Butcher. We'll see. We'll see what happens. So Warboss resolves. Oh, opponent's just going to Moment of Craving the Warboss, sure. And they do this before we go to combat, so we don't get a token. Does mean Butcher gets to grow to a 3/3. So Moment of Craving and Cry of the Carnarium no longer cleanly answer it. If opponent goes land Nicol Bolas, would be kind of awkward for us. We discard, I guess the discard doesn't matter. So opponent Bedevils, we get to dome opponent for 3. Hopefully we draw something. I mean, it's something. Thought Erasure opponent. So they have the Eldest Reborn, Discovery Dispersal, and Disinformation Campaign. So of these cards, the Eldest Reborn is certainly the most powerful. Disinformation Campaign would cost the opponent's entire next turn. I mean, if we don't take Disinformation Campaign, I suppose they do have the Surveil here. So they are going to get more use out of this campaign. But we will... I feel like if we don't take the Eldest Reborn, we're going to have a problem, honestly. With a Nicol Bolas in our graveyard. We will graveyard a land. I'm going to put this grave into play tapped. Opponent probably spends their turn Disinformation campaigning, which means if we do draw a threat, we get to stick it. Opponent hasn't seen a Planeswalker yet. I'm just going to discard the Elderspell. Is that insane? Because most of the things we draw, we can play off 5 lands. Okay, so Thief of Sanity is a good draw here. We'll put Steam Vents and tapped, A, because opponent knows about it, And B, because if opponent picks up Disinformation Campaign and replays it, that's a problem. Hopefully this Discovery fails to find a 2-mana removal spell, and we get to hit opponent and just get Thief of Sanity value. That would be very, very enjoyable for me. So opponent surveils just the Thought Erasure, so presumably they have removal then. Oh, they have another Disinformation Campaign, okie dokie. And we draw Nicol Bolas or Ravager. So we're going to attack with Thief of Sanity, see what we can hit. So I like this Search for Azcanta. I can't imagine opponent has a Wrath in their deck, so we're just going to play this Nicol Bolas. Put them down a card. Opponent discards Duress. Fair discard. So I'm not sure. Opponent would need probably to have 2 removal spells to cleanly answer the whole board. Nicol Bolas is going to kill, I imagine, our Nicol Bolas. So our options here. So what does this do? Then if you have 7 or more cards, you may transform. Cool. So we would get to keep Search for Azcanta. I don't think we can just ignore Nicol Bolas. As much as I'd like to draw a card off our opponent's library, I think we just have to take Nicol Bolas out. We'll play this Search. We'll play a tap land. We have 7 cards in yard, so this is going to flip. Opponent's drawn an answer to Thief. They were going to at some point, but at least they don't have a Nicol Bolas. Opponent Thought Erasures to pick back Disinformation Campaign. So our turn. Okay, so we'll put Blood Crypt into the bin. We'll definitely transform this. We draw a land anyway. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll shock in Watery Grave and we'll pass. And if opponent goes for Disinformation Campaign, we'll try to search for a negate. So we get a Bedevil. Destroy target artifact, creature, or planeswalker. We just won't take anything. Actually, this was really terrible here. Yeah, that was quite bad. We should have just let this happen. Like, there was so many better things we could have drawn there. I mean, we're just going to jam Nicol Bolas. We'll +1. Opponent has Bedevil for Nikki B, sure. We draw land. We're going to shock that in so we can actually... Oh, it's not even a shock. We'll just pass. So we have another search activation end of turn. Hopefully opponent hasn't drawn anything. Discovery is pretty good. It lets them pick a campaign back up. Yep. But if they do replay it, we're not going to search for Azcanta in response this time, opponent. Sure. Opponent has a play, so presumably they have a land. Well, let's search anyway. I guess we'll take this Thought Erasure. And then we draw Nicol Bolas. That's a pretty good sequence of draws. Alright, let's see what opponent has. We'll take this. Do we want another Nicol Bolas on top? Yes. Yes, I think I do. Would we have search activation up after playing Nikki B? No, we may as well just run out Nicol Bolas then. We'll take opponent's last card. We have a dragon. They have a Narset. Narset's pretty good. Hopefully Narset whiffs. We get to flip Nicol Bolas, play a new Nicol Bolas. Yeah, this is completely fine. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 mana? So I guess... What do we do? Oh, so we can -4. Oh yeah, no, this turn's fantastic. Okay, so we attack Nicol Bolas into Narset. We get her.
I was not prepared for this.
We'll transform Nicol Bolas. We'll -4 Nicol Bolas to get back a Nicol Bolas. We'll... what will we do? We could just have our Nicol Bolas Dragon God draw 2 cards. That seems pretty... Oh, we could like minus... Oh no, that would kill him. That seems bad. So much flexibility. I think we just want to draw 2 cards. Okay, we'll play land. We'll play Thief of Sanity. And then we'll pass. So we are quite far ahead now, aside from still dwelling on our egregious pun with that search for Azcanta. We'd have felt very smart if we'd drawn the Negate though. As it is, we felt pretty stupid. But we got there in that match. So, 2 games with Grixis midrange in that match, 2 victories against Grixis control. Nicol Bolas is flying all over the place. I very much enjoyed the games of the deck, to be honest. Let me know what you thought of the games, of the deck, of the gameplay. If you do have anything to say at all, please leave a comment on this video. If you enjoyed this video, you'd like to see more, please consider subscribing and setting notifications to let you know when a new video goes live. Or if you want to see me play Magic live, I do have a Twitch channel linked in the description below as well. That's twitch.tv/mazemtg. Otherwise, wherever you are in the world, I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll see you all very soon.